Yeah, y'all. LVZ NBA Talk. Realest talk on basketball on YouTube. Like, share, subscribe. Peep the game. Shouts out to the LDBC, Lions Den basketball communities. My brothers. Ticket TV. Town business. Say less sports. You got to say what's up to my brother 7-8 Sports TV. Black Reality TV. Quest X. And the rest of us on this NBA talk. Now let's get into this basketball shit. Now, I've been listening to a lot of shit the last couple of days. And it's really starting to piss me off about Chris Paul. A lot of people are wanting to start to shit on Chris Paul now. Oh, Chris Paul ain't shit. Oh, Chris Paul a bad leader. Oh, Chris Paul, a motherfucker. And I'm like, hold up. Chris might be a little angry, short guy. But let's analyze and be objectionable. Let's be objective when it comes to making these broad-ass assumptions. Just like Russ is a ball hog. Russ can't never do nothing. Come on, man. You can't lead the league in assists and be a ball hog. Well, with Chris Paul a bad leader. Chris Paul ain't. Look, every team Chris Paul has been on after his rookie year has been a contender. You dig what I'm saying? I mean, and let's analyze the teams he's played for. Let's analyze the things he's criticized for. And let's be objective about him. And see if we can come to a reasonable thought process when coming to talk about brother Chris Paul. Now, Chris Paul, I love Chris Paul. Out of North Carolina, the story's unique. My son has Chris Paul's book about how his grandfather got killed and he crossed the Bama over. My son, Charisma, had that book about how Chris Paul crossed the Bamas over and was hitting threes when he was a little kid because they said he was small. Then they killed his granddad, and he scored 64 points because I think his grandfather was 64 in high school. I mean, yeah, man. Shouts out to Chris Paul. I've always liked Chris Paul since Wake Forest. I was in Upper Marlboro. I was locked up Upper Marlboro for a month, and I was betting on Wake Forest against Duke because Duke was the number one team at that time. I had J.J. Redick. I was like, fuck J.J. Redick. Chris Paul is this. They had Chris Duhon. Fuck Chris Duhon. Chris Paul will fuck him up. Don't hear shit about no goddamn Chris Don't Harm. Anyway, I don't think Redick was there at the time, but I know Chris Duhon, but he bust Duhon ass. Shouts out to Chris Duhon. I just don't like Duke players for real. Anyway, so I've watched Chris Paul since college, you know what I'm saying? And I've enjoyed his style of play. He's a classic traditional point guard. And the myth is that the league is getting away from that. That's really not true. I'll give you a prime example. Russ is starting to play more like a traditional point guard, and you actually like that play. So, really, if he dampens down the shot selection, you would love that play. If he took 2 less threes and took took 2 less twos and shot a better free throw percentage, you would love Russ's play, and that would be basically classic point guard play, 20 and 10. And Chris Paul could register that in his sleep. Now, when we analyze Chris Paul at the Pelicans, right? The Pelicans wasn't shit. They was okay, but they wasn't shit till they got Chris Paul. And him with David West and Stojakovic, and was that Cuttino Mobley, I think? They started busting ass and went to the playoffs. Chris Paul got into it with Byron Scott, coaching staff, and the organization, and they sent him packing. He wanted to go to the Lakers. They blocked it and sent him to the Clippers. That fucked him up right there. Chris Paul had a chance to play with Kobe Bryant and feed Kobe Bryant and Dwight Howard and Paul Gasol. And he could have made that work because he would have got on Dwight's ass too. You never heard David West say bad shit about Chris Paul. But anyway, and David West is a great teammate. Anyway. So he gets traded to the Clippers, who weren't that good until they get Chris Paul, and they had Doc and Blake Griffin. And let's keep it real, man. Blake Griffin didn't get pushed until Chris Paul got there. I love Baron Davis, but he wasn't utilizing them. Well, one, we see now is because Donald Sterling hated him. And two, we see Chris Paul was doing all of that in spite of Donald Sterling being there. So with that being said, man, we gotta look at that for that. When you talk about Chris Paul and Blake Griffin's fucking relationship, and why Chris Paul left the Clippers, look what the Clippers did to Blake Griffin. They gave him that big ass contract after Chris Paul left and then got rid of his ass. You can't get it done. Then DeAndre Jordan, you wanted to leave and go to Dallas because Chris Paul mean to me. And you haven't been good since. I mean, you've been alright, DJ, but you could be better. You could. And Doc and Chris Paul got not even Doc, Chris Paul got the best out of you. Because it seemed like when Chris Paul left, it was time for you to go. So when we talk about Chris Paul being this poison and all of this shit, we talk about two bad motherfucker organizations. I mean, we talk about the Pelicans. Anthony Davis wanted to run out there off the first thing smoking. Now they got Zion, and that brother got put that okra and tomatoes and black-eyed peas down. But he may be great, but we got to see how that organization bounced back from all this years of lackluster performance. And then you get the Clippers where Doc and Chris Paul helped push that team to the limit. And now that don't work. And then you talk about, well, Chris Paul had a bad relationship with Doc. So did Rajon Rondo. It seems like a lot of people had bad, you see what I'm saying? So, yeah. So, I mean, we got to look at things like that. Then, so now we go to Houston. My brother Ticket TV been yelling the whole time that dribble system ain't gonna work. Ain't gonna work in the playoffs. And he's been dead on. 100% accurate. Every time, all the time. Down to the quarter, down to the games. Y'all hear him do play-by-play. And he be right on the play-by-play. Because he know at that time, man, he like, that shit, too much pounding the ball. Then the steal happen. Turnover. They don't call the foul because sometimes he just going to the basket just to get a foul, not to even score. Anyway, they add Chris Paul, put him off the ball. He plays good off the ball, and he's well off the ball. But when they lose, first year after him not being healthy, this year James gets hurt, and they beat Golden State with just Chris Paul. We keep forgetting Chris Paul had flashes of his old brilliance when he had time to orchestrate the offense, and he made players better. Now, where I disagree with my brother Ticket is he going to make OKC better? Because it ain't too many people. They looking to rebuild so much that I don't know that he can make Shai Gilgeous-Alexander better, because he going to be starting and taking minutes from him. But I don't know. I want him to get traded personally. I think somewhere like San Antonio or Dallas, they could use him. I would hate to see him go to Miami and work. I mean, Miami. I wouldn't mind to see him going to Miami. I would hate to see him go to the Knicks, but they do have the salary cap space. For real, they got the salary cap space. So when you look at it from that perspective, you know, he could go run the Knicks and run RJ and Knox and Trill come off the bench, and you know, he'll run with Randall and them, and no, they won't be a playoff team, but he'll be a perennial all-star and go out with nice numbers. But I hate that everybody's blaming him, and now he's out of Houston because last year he was right about what he was saying. He just ain't better than James Harden. So y'all feel like because he not better than James Harden, he don't got the right to tell him the best way to play basketball for them to be successful? That's ridiculous. And then Mike D'Antoni is weak as a coach. Because don't you want to win? This man, don't you want to win? I just don't understand. Everybody hates Chris now. Paul. And it's fucked up. Because for real, he's not wrong. He's getting a bad rap. Now, we could think of, I was sitting at home just thinking of possible landing spots. Maybe a reunion with Blake Griffin in Detroit where they try to get a redemption. But we don't know if that'll happen because we know that relationship was bad. But maybe Blake understand now with been playing on one leg and with no help at all. Man, with him, what's that young fella name? That big young dumb boy. DeAndre Drummond and Chris Paul. Maybe they could do something. Who knows? Another possible landing spot. I would like to see him go. Like I said, Dallas, he could go there so they won't look so vanilla. He could go to, come on, y'all. We run to San Antonio. Maybe he could go to San Antonio. You work some kind of deal out where you make some kind of move where you put you give a young player to OKC, and you get rid of some big contracts. I don't know who they got, but maybe they got enough. Maybe they can do it. And you have Pop. He'll respect Pop, and Pop will want him to give up the ball and do it. You know, Tony Parker type of thing, maybe. So, I would have said Indiana last year because I like how Indiana's playing traditional big ball with Sabonis starting next year and Miles Turner, and they'll be punishing players, and they could run Chris Paul in an offense like that because he's a traditional point guard. So, outside of that, I can't think of many teams, you know what I'm saying, that'll be able to take on that contract and get better and serve Chris Paul what he wants to be with a winner. Because Chris Paul don't want to play with no sorry team. Chris Paul won't play with a winner. Especially winding down the twilight of his career. And I don't want to see. And it's so obvious now that the pattern of what they doing to faded stars is sending them out in obscurity. Like AI and Carmelo. Now they trying to do this to Chris Paul. And I don't like it. You know, maybe Chris Paul can go back home to Charlotte after they just lost Kemba. Maybe, who knows? You know, maybe that's a possibility. I don't know. Maybe he goes down to Orlando and run with them youngins. They could really use a great point guard. Maybe he could whip him and Vucevic and Ross and Fournier, and maybe he could run maybe he can run Same magic he ran for Blake Griffin for Aaron Gordon, because everybody likes to make that comparison. So, yeah, y'all tell me what y'all think. You know, one LVC, man. Stop hating on Chris.